immovable forces, the question of which one blinks first. And as we've said before, Alliance appears to be the stronger of the two companies. It has the stronger balance sheet. It has probably the better configured plants. But Silver Fern Farms has talked a lot of talk, has made a lot of changes, but it's still struggling to get its balance sheet really to where you'd feel that it's in the right shape. Yeah. The question of the reduction in cash requirements for Silver Fern Farms has come about through the sale of inventory and the loss of market share, which then immediately translates into how much of quota product they can sell into the high-paying markets. So they're, in effect, the right sizing is becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Thanks for that, Allan. Up next, we take a look at the headlines making the rounds. Welcome back. Now it's on to You Said It, comment in the ag media, which we think deserves more discussion. Well, Bernard, this week news of a fine in the Auckland District Court, almost $50,000 for effluent spillage in the Waikato. Are farmers just not getting the message? How many of these prosecutions do there need to be?
Well, obviously not. With the cases going before the courts seemingly regularly now and being picked up by the media, there is a theme developing here of country versus town that is dangerous for farmers in the long run. The report out recently on clean streams shows that farmers still haven't really gotten the message and haven't really changed their ways. And this is a dangerous thing for particularly dairying, where the most pressure is on, where we're seeing the most intensification. When you have district councils and the townies, if you like, seeing this sort of continual cases of effluent abuse going through, they start to wonder, what are these farmers up to? And particularly with the payout going up, they'll ask the question, these guys on the farms are making a killing and they're doing it by polluting our streams and our waterways. So this is an ongoing problem for dairying, and it needs to be fixed. You can't just wipe it away and blame it on communist district councils. This isn't the case. There is real stuff going on here.
And many urban people are paying rates to those councils as well, and they're in effect funding the cost of the prosecutions, aren't they?
That's right. And when you start to talk about rivers that can't be swum in, you start to get into a wider political area, the sort of area we saw with the issue of the foreshore and seabed, where people go, well, it's part of the New Zealand birthright that I should be able to swim in the lakes and the rivers. And these corporate farmers, and that's what some of these really big dairy farmers are now, are polluting it for me. This isn't on.
Right,
so the dairy farmers need to realise they've got a political issue on their hands. It's not just an environmental or a bureaucratic issue. This is a political issue.
Right. Well, moving on to another hot water issue down south. Protests in Canterbury led by Robin Judkins and Environment Minister Nick Smith saying in an interview on the Country Channel that residents should give the new ECAN commissioners a fair go. Do you think that's going to happen?
This is a hot topic. We're talking here about the phrase water wars being used by the Greens and by others. There are people in Canterbury who feel they've been disenfranchised. They see people behind the scenes pulling levers in Wellington and elsewhere to push through big irrigation schemes that favour dairy companies, and they're nervous and they're worried about it.
But Allan, there are some people who are supportive of what the Minister has done and say the outcome for Canterbury is going to be much the better because of this, aren't there?
Yes, I was talking to a meat industry chief executive a couple of weeks ago, and he said to me on the topic that it was the best thing that could possibly have happened. So I suppose we're getting the traditional, the Greens and the environmentalists on one side, and you're getting the business people on the other side, and the two have come from very different viewpoints.
Well, I'm sure this is all going to be played out during the upcoming mayoral race in Christchurch, isn't it?
Which, of course, Jim Anderton seems to be favourite to win.
Yes. Oh, well, we'll see what happens there. Now, moving on to another protest. Federated Farmers, they'll be in the streets of Wellington next week. protesting over the ETS. Bernard, this is a done deal, isn't it? What's the point of protesting?
Well, they can make life difficult for the government. This is an issue which has been bubbling away in the political sphere for a few months now. A lot of people on the right of politics, particularly ACT, and inside the National Party. You scrape the surface inside National. There aren't too many people who support the ETS apart from Nick Smith and John Key. And this is not going away. And when the Federated Farmers get involved, the heat will go on, particularly now that we're into a period of spiking inflation. New Zealanders are about to see their prices rise by 6% when you combine the emissions trading scheme, the ACC levies and the GST increase. This is going to hurt a lot of New Zealanders, and when prices go up from the middle of the year onwards and sustained for a year or so, as interest rates go up too, there is going to be a lot of political pressure on the government. It is too late probably to stop the deal from going through, and John Key seems determined. But this is not going to go away, and the pain is going to be intense for the government.
And John Key is intending to step once again into the lion's den by attending the Federated Farmers National Conference down in Invercargill later next week. What sort of reception do you think he's going to get, Allan?
Well, he'll probably get a reasonably hot reception, but he is nothing if not accommodating. John Key is a consensus politician and will no doubt say nice things to the Federated Farmers Conference, which might deflect some of the criticism. But
Federated Farmers want more than nice words, don't they, Bernard? They want the ETS scrapped.
Yeah, I think Key misestimates how much anger is out there on ETS, and he might be surprised. He is, as you say, Allan, he's very good at saying the right things to the right people at the right time to make them happy. Sometimes I worry that he does a bit too much of the smiling and waving. And it is good to see him take a stand on something. Well, I disagree with him on it. He will no doubt take some real heat, and it actually might be the first time that we see in public someone challenging the Prime Minister. Up until now, he's had a pretty clean run with everyone. And I know that inside Federated Farmers, they are angry about this.
This might be all about to change. Well, another issue from down south, a plan to spread Wanaka's sewage sludge on a terrace farm, the home of Shrek, no less. Allan, this seems to be not very well thought out by the local authority, doesn't it?
Well, it does seem to be not very well thought out, because when asked whether there were any problems, whether it had been tried anywhere before, the council representative said, well, no, it hadn't actually been tried anywhere else before, but it should be all right. That doesn't seem to me like a very cast iron guarantee that it's actually not going to cause problems. So I think the farmers are being very justified in questioning whether it's a good idea or not.
What do you think, Bernard?
I think it revisits this theme of if not town versus country, then people thinking a lot about their rights and the ability of governments or corporates to impinge on their ownership and control of land. And we're starting to see this clash in very intense ways on various issues. So water, effluent, air quality, even things like
tenure review,
tenure review, and also the move towards more windmills on farms. People really don't want things in their backyard. They're being very possessive about it. I think it's partly because land prices have increased so much in the last decade, to the point now where it's a major store of wealth. It's the thing you get very excited about, and it is something anyone doing any development will have to think about. What sort of reaction am I going to get?
Yeah. Well, one instance where we have seen recently that urban dwellers have had a big effect has been with the food miles debate in the UK. But Mike Cherrett, the British Deputy High Commissioner, he's speaking out in the latest Farmers Weekly about this whole issue, saying we need to drive a stake through its heart. He said it was never government policy. It's been very divisive. What do you think, Bernard? Consumers are still pretty keen on some of these principles, aren't they? Farmers markets and buying local, thinking global. Yeah,
I lived in the UK for 4 or 5 years. Consumers there are very wary about the quality of their food. This goes back to the days of mad cow disease, how they were reassured by their government that everything would be fine, and then they were told weeks later that they may have a fatal brain disease. This tends to colour a whole generation's view about food safety and about reassurances from governments